First of all, I am so excited. First, I am delighted that all of you are here today. I'm absolutely honored that creativeLIVE chose my studio to be the first studio that they've done collaboratively with a photographer. And I am so thrilled about that. I can't even tell you. We've worked for like 3 months to get my studio actually in shape because it didn't look like this like 3 months ago. I love being in Benicia. That's where my studio is at. This building is about 150 years old. It was a military arsenal. In fact, they used to store the weapons underneath on the bottom floor. There's tunnels that go from my building all the way down to the marina. So it's got quite a big history to it. And this was one of those moments when I found this space. I absolutely fell in love as soon as I walked in the door. I knew I was home. And we used to come out here, Michael and I would come out here all the time to go photograph high school seniors. And every time we'd come out, without exception, I'd be saying, boy, I'd love to have a studio out in that place. And I'm not telling all you photographers to come out here and join me, okay? But it was a great place, and I'm thrilled that I actually have a space in the building. I have 1,800 square feet, so I have a fairly good space. And so it serves us quite well. We do family portraits and photograph children and do boudoir photography, and I also photograph headshots and portfolios and, of course, wedding photography. These days, I'm not photographing as many weddings as I used to. I'm probably down to about 10 a year, and that's by choice. I really find that I like the diversity that I have with doing a variety of different kinds of things. I think it makes me a better wedding photographer to be very good at photographing children. I think it makes me a better family photographer to photograph weddings, because I'll tell you right now, babies and brides are absolutely just alike. So if you're a photographer out there today who is just photographing weddings, don't minimize the value of an education from someone who also does portraits. And you know, when you tune in, you go, oh, she's going to talk about portraits today. Don't feel that that's not going to benefit you, because if you can photograph a wedding, then you can definitely photograph families and children, and you can also do headshots, and you can do boudoir, because the last time I checked, underneath that bridal gown is a girl wearing beautiful lingerie. So there's a variety of things, and that's always been my approach to photography, is that 1 + 1 = 1. It's all the same. You know, and whether I was photographing a wedding, my mindset was, that's a person, that's a woman. What I do to make her happy? How can I interpret those moments to make that woman enjoy the experience? And that's the same mindset that I have when I'm photographing weddings. I'll just tell you real briefly about the equipment that I use, just so I can do that and get that taken care of. You're going to see something a little bit surprising on this screen this morning, and that is the word Nikon. Yes, I crossed over to the dark side, or I should say that I actually saw the light. And you know, cameras don't take pictures, but they do help you to do a good job. And I had the opportunity recently to test some Nikon equipment. And I have to say, I was really quite surprised. I was prepared not to like it, because I've always been a Canon snob. I mean, and I'm proud to say that I was a Canon snob. I'm not, you know, that's just who I am. And I was like, ooh, this is so great. I have blah, blah. I love my white lenses, okay? But when I had this opportunity to test the Nikon glass, especially on the D4, which is the camera body that I'm using, I was like, whoa, those images are so sharp. It's just shocking. They're amazing. I love the color temperature right out of the camera. I find that they're very easy to work with. And of course, they have a variety of lenses that fit my needs. I especially like that 14 to 24 millimeter lens. That is a great piece of glass. And then the 24 millimeter 1.4, you'll notice that with my lenses that I tend to like fast glass. I do. And I like good glass. I won't buy inexpensive lenses. I prefer to buy the ones that are their professional brand. And that's because I believe that if you pay once, you get it over with, and then you have it for a lifetime. And you don't have to apologize. So I'm not one of those photographers who will say, oh, I'll do this now, but then later on, I'll get something else. I like to say, bite the bullet, buy the good stuff. Then there's no apologies. You always have a good foundation. And that's important to me. I use the SB910 Speedlight, which I tested the other day, and I was like, wow, it's great. It's just a terrific speedlight for wedding receptions. I just got a really cool toy to play with like 3 days ago from my friend Jerry Guionis, and it's called the Ice Light. This is the equivalent to a video light, and I'm here to tell you, not only does it look really cool, but it is an amazing light source to use for wedding receptions, for portraits of any kind. And we're going to run it through the paces while you're here in class, and I think you're going to find that it is absolutely a tool you have to have. I love it. I found it just absolutely amazing. It's lightweight, it's portable, and of course it's rechargeable, so it's just a really terrific tool. We're also going to be using the ProPhoto D1 Studio strobes for some of the work we're going to do tomorrow. And then we use the Rime light panel for a bouncing light. I like working with reflectors, and I find this one very, very handy to have. Okay, with that said, I'd like to now talk to you a little bit about after capture. What do you do after you capture? Well, I use Simply Color Lab. I use also their Simply Studio software, and in addition to that, Simply Canvas. For any of those, and when we do our studio tour, you're going to see this amazing, ginormous composite that Simply Canvas made for me, and I'm not kidding you. When this thing arrived in the box, it literally gave me chills. It's 5 feet by 5 feet. It's a ginormous wall hanging, and I'm very grateful to them for providing that. They do a beautiful, beautiful job. I had the opportunity recently to go to Ohio and meet the owner of Simply Canvas, and I was quite impressed by his entrepreneurial spirit. And in addition to that, the co-owner is a woman, and I love supporting women-based businesses or women-owned businesses. I think that's really important. Not that I don't care for my male counterparts, but you know, let's go for the girls, right? Yeah. In addition to the guys. I use Epson printers. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, wait a minute, Bambi, you're talking about Simply Color and Simply Canvas. Why in the world are you talking about Epson? I love printing my own work. I absolutely love it. I enjoy being able to think of an idea in my head and go, well, what if I do this, or what if I do that, and then being able to work it out and then print it. I just absolutely love it. The cool thing, for those of you that don't want to do that, you know, because not everybody can afford or wants to have the bother, and it can be a bother unless you know what you're doing, and I do. I like that. For some folks, they may not want to do that. For those that don't, guess what? Simply Canvas uses the very same printers that I do. So I know I'm going to get a great results. And I love their customer service, by the way. I think it's absolutely awesome. For albums, I use Epica albums out of Italy. They do an absolutely scrumptious job with a variety of different books. And I'm going to talk to you more about how albums are important to us in our professional life and how they are a moneymaker for us as the weekend progresses. So I won't get into too much detail on that. But I've got a variety of them. There's one sitting right there that's a boudoir book. A variety of their products that are around my studio you're going to absolutely love. I use SanDisk compact flashcards, Graphic Authority for textures. We don't do a lot of textures, but when I do use them, I use Graphic Authority. I believe it's kind of like salt and pepper. You use it very sparingly on an image or two. And if you want to see how beautiful those textures look, if you go to this little boudoir book and see that, you'll see some of their beautiful background layers and such in that boudoir album. I use Adobe Lightroom and, of course, obviously Adobe Photoshop. We use both of them. I don't just use Lightroom because, personally, sometimes I feel like a nut and sometimes I don't. And so what I mean by that is that sometimes I like some of the Lightroom presets, which brings me to Photoshop Actions and Presets. I love Yervant's black and white actions, and more importantly, his black and white infrared action is my very favorite. It's the most true-to-life infrared action out there on the market, in my opinion. And I will tell you, I'm a girl who grew up with infrared film, so I know what the real stuff actually looks like. That was before any of your time right here, because you guys all probably just were digital shooters from the beginning. So I love Yervant's actions for that. Craig Minnelli, I love his beauty bar. I use it every single day for enhancing a face. I'll work just slightly, maybe the eyes on a subject, or just, you know, obviously clean up the skins and make sure that they're nice and smooth. I don't go cross the bridge of no return when it comes to retouching. I don't want to see I don't want that face to look so, you know, so smooth that it looks artificial. And I do not retouch babies' faces so that they look like plastic dolls, you know, so. And by the way, you're not going to see any angel wings here in my studio, just so you know. We took them and put them all away. No, actually, we don't ever have any. Marcus Bell has beautiful Lightroom presets. He, to me, is the master of black and white actions and presets. They look the most like real black and white. They're absolutely gorgeous. Kevin Kubota has some amazing Lightroom presets as well. I love his Vintage Delish set. And of course, Triple Scoop Music gives me fabulous music that I use literally all the time. We do not use popular music for our slide presentations. Michael's going to show you a little bit about our slideshows and how we do an actual sales consultation with a client. We use ProSelect to do that. And I'll tell you right now, in my opinion, ProSelect is the best tool on the market for actually being able to do sales with clients. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be able to figure it out. It's not, you know, you don't have to spend hours and hours working the product to make it work. So, with that said, now I think it's time for us to do a little bit of a studio tour, right?
All right,
which
fantastic.
leads me to I'm going to walk you real quickly just around the studio. This is our main camera room here. As you can see, we have large windows around almost the entire studio. And I love this. We use mostly window light. Tomorrow you'll see me working with studio strobes because there are occasions when the session will call for that. One of the sessions we're going to do tomorrow afternoon is Old Hollywood Glamour for a client. And so because of that, then we're going to set up our studio strobes and make it very Old Hollywood. When we need to close and block out the sunlight, then we have these large panels. Uncle Mike or Colin, do you know what those panels, what are they called, the ones that we have that we block the window?
They're insulation panels.
Okay, that's what I thought. You guys got them at Home Depot, right?
Called them insulation panels.
Yeah, they're just insulation panels from Home Depot. I don't know about that stuff. It's kind of like, Prissy, I don't know nothing about birth and no babies. Well, that's me, you know. Okay, that's your first quote of the day. So at any rate, I love movies titles. Movies always inspire me with all kinds of one-liners, and I love one-liners. Okay, so at any rate, so if we need to, we can block out our windows with these panels. And I like it better than drapes because they move out very, very quickly. It's also, I like just framing my windows. I'm really proud of the decor in my studio. I like that kind of clean, understated look, and I think it really works very well. I have a variety of sets within the space. This is kind of my set for boudoir, something that's just a bit softer. And then of course we have a couple of old doors, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how we use our old doors pretty soon in a few moments. You notice I'm not hanging hundreds of pictures on my walls, and the ones that are on my walls are quite large. It's because I don't want to have so many images in it that you get distracted and that you can't see the beauty of an image. So I like to have vignettes where we have an image featured. All of our photographs that are on the walls here are on those little, what are those things called, Colin? Those little plastic doodaflages? They're about this big, and then they have that little sticky stuff that you can take off the wall. Well, they're all mounted that way. So, because we use our walls, just the wall, we don't use backdrops. We use just the walls, which is why I painted them the color that I did, so that there would be a nice, beautiful, neutral tone for as a backdrop. So they come off the wall quite easily, and then you can put it back up. It's very, very simple. Of course, I don't do it. My staff does it, which is great, because I wouldn't know how to do that kind of stuff. We project everything that we do on our large monitor right here. And that way, when a client comes in for a portrait session, we invite them to come back for a viewing. We do not show we don't do portraits and show them online. I don't believe in doing that. And I'm going to tell you, I can't tell you that I've never done it. And I've got a little rubber band around my hand to remind me to snap it every time I get that urge to let a client talk me into showing them their images online. Don't do it. And I'm telling you because it irritates me to death because I do it. I've done it too. And then you have a client you find on your website or on your Facebook page, and bless their hearts, they don't know that it's wrong to do that. And they take screen captures of your beautiful images and they post them, and then they take them to school for their kids and make little collages and stuff, and they've not been paid for. And this is our profession. So I'm really learning. I've got that little rubber band around my wrist to snap me when I have that weak moment, and I'm going to let a client talk me into doing that. Weddings, absolutely. We'll put them online all day long. I like weddings online because I'm well paid to get there. My profit is built into my coverage. We'll talk about that more on that day. So that's this particular vignette. So this might be used more for boudoir. And now we're going to take a perusal this way, right? In this room right here, this is our print room. And this is where Colin and Mike will actually, they'll actually take our prints and we mount them. We don't just hand a person a photograph. We take those images and we mount them, and we have a beautiful way of presenting them to a client. We put them on mats. We have these gorgeous mats that we use for client work. They're 8-ply. So they're absolutely gorgeous because people pay a lot for my product, for my beautiful portraits. And I want to make sure that they get something that is absolutely fabulous and that it looks expensive and it looks like it validates what they've paid for that particular product. This is another one of our vignettes right here, this fireplace mantle. For any of you who've ever seen some of my imagery, you might actually recognize this. Now here's the cool thing about this mantle. First of all, it's completely movable. We don't mount it on the wall on purpose because we like to move it all over the studio, depending on the time of day. Now you're probably wondering, it kind of wobbles, it'll wobble around. Well, because you've probably seen pictures where I have girls sitting on top of it. Well, this is the clever thing. If you move it away from the wall about this far, You see all these trunks right here? There's a reason for these trunks. What we do is we stack them behind the wall, behind the fireplace mantle, so that we have a stable environment from behind. We have this much space for her, for the gal, if we're doing boudoir pictures or whatever, for her to put her little hiney behind that, which is great, by the way, if you want to make somebody look slimmer. You just tuck that big bottom behind and let it drop off the back of that, and guess what? It takes off, it'll take off some pounds or whatever. So it looks really pretty. And then in front, to keep the fireplace mantle from falling forward, we stick one of our couches in front, so that if a model or somebody fell off, they'd fall on the couch and it wouldn't hurt themselves. So it's a real practical way for me to have somebody to be able to use a variety of my props, because I get bored very easily and I always want to change and try something new. I love being able to go, well, let's try this, let's move here. I don't have that little string attached to my light so that I can only go here. I think that's absolutely the stupidest thing in the world. I want to be able to be a free spirit, and some days, depending on the subject that you're working with, you may have a complete idea on how you want that photo shoot to go, and then they show up and then you realize they weren't who you thought they were. And I like to tailor my photo segments to the clients that I'm working with. Okay, now come on with me. This is our high key area, and as you can see, I have sheer fabrics here. Now this is one of the other things I'm so proud. I feel like I'm Colin's mom because I'm so proud of this darn kid. Okay, one day I was making Mike hang these shears from our ceiling on those red bars up there, which are like sprinkler systems, which is probably not the best thing. And so I was saying, I'd love it if I just had some way to attach these beautiful pieces of fabric. And so Colin goes, well, what if we made like a T-bar? And I went, oh, that'd be great. So I came back from an assignment, and look and lo behold, he had created these wonderful T-bars and got the bar from Home Depot. And what's really great is they swivel, so we can move them around the environment and move them around the studio. So come on back this way now, and I'll show you my little high key area. We have a wall over here now that is, it's a light, very, very light gray, and we do lots and lots of portraits here. You see, sometimes I want a lighter toned background, but in addition to that, sometimes I also want a flatter light source, because flat light can be very flattering for certain faces. If you have a face that's real angular or very long and you want to broaden that face a little bit, then using a flat light source is a really great way to do it. You'll notice that we have these little pieces of plastic sticking in the windows right here. These are just like from tap plastics, nothing fancy. They pop in and out of the window very easily. So like right now, you see the sun is actually coming in the window right here. You'll see it right back here. And so if I were doing some portrait sessions in this area, this could give me kind of a little bit of a strong light source. And as the sun moves across this way, it'll be even brighter. So these beautiful pieces of opaque plastic really help to soften that light source a bit. In addition to this area, we have another beautiful gray wall, which gives us just a different alternative. And this, by the way, is one of the fabulous doors that I had my friend Carrie Clayton, you're going to meet her in a little while, that she chalk painted for me. And these are just phenomenal. So we have lots of different props that we move around. This is our printers, the 9900, the Epson 9900, and the 7900. So we can print quite large. And I'm going to talk to you more about printing large as the time goes on during the weekend, because I print like for our bridal show booths, or I will also print for if we work with a hair salon or a bridal salon. It's a great way to print a very large banner. It's yours. You can go into their salon and such, and so it's a really great tool. So now I'm going to take you into the throne room. Okay, you guys are sworn to secrecy, and just so you know, the messy desk is mine. I totally claim it. But you know what they say about a cluttered desk? Okay, come on. So this is this is the command center, okay? And this is Colin's desk, which is all nice and orderly. And Colin is our production person. He's the one who handles all of the production. And we have client folders, as you can see up here. We write the name of the client on the back side of the folder, and these are active projects that we have going. So, if we have a project that we've got going where we still are waiting on prints to come back, or we have some framed pieces that we're waiting on, our albums, this is where you'd find them. And we have, up at the top, we'll have albums themselves. When they come in, we put them up there until the whole order is ready to go. In addition to that, this is our wall where Colin keeps me and Mike out of trouble, basically, because he basically tells us what to do, and he says, okay, we have a meeting, a production meeting every Monday morning, and Colin will sit and talk to me and Mike and say, okay, Michael, how is this project going, or when are we going to do, when do we have the sales consultation for this client, and so forth. And these are the various steps that have been taken on different client orders that we're working on. And I think this is really helpful for us because it keeps us keeps things organized, and it keeps us out of trouble and keeping clients happy. Because at the end of the day, it's really, really important that your clients, if you drop the ball on the service end, then you've lost a client. I don't care how great a photographer you are. Back in this corner is an area where we keep all of our camera gear. And then we'll walk this way. I just want to show you real quickly the most important room in the entire place. This is the meditation room. This is where all of the real important work is done, I'm sure. When a client comes into my studio, this is the first little area that they see. This is just my little foyer area. And then as we walk through, this is the first at the entrance to the camera room. That big piece I was telling you about from Simply Color, this is it. I mean, you have to admit, is that not just incredible? I just love this. And I have to thank Colin and Michael last night because they sat up, they were here till like 9 o'clock last night, making sure that this got mounted on the wall correctly. I mean, as you can see, it's all separate pieces. But my goal is to create really interesting things so that clients, when they come into your studio, they have something else to talk about. Whether a client will ever purchase a piece like this, I think yes. In fact, I think somebody would purchase this that would not buy a regular wall portrait like that, because it looks more edgy. It's more of an art piece. It's not like a big picture of their family. So I think it has to be the right kind of photograph. I think it's younger and it's contemporary. So I've got some families in mind right now that I just did some photographs for that I think this would be a great fit for. So my goal is to create a variety of different products and viewpoints for each client, which leads me to my little area right here where I have my couch. All of the furnishings in this entire room we use for photography. This couch is down-filled, so it's really comfortable. I love having families lay on the couch. Quite often when I'm doing a family portrait session, I'll have them lay on the couch and we put the kids and have them sit on the back of the couch. I want real cozy, warm, fuzzy families. It's in a neutral color. I bought it from Restoration Hardware Store, but there's an outlet here, and I want you to know I'm not cheap, but I'm very, very, I guess maybe I'm a little cheap, huh? But I'm sorry, I'm not ashamed of that. I like to be able to be, to get things at a discount. I'm not, I'm debt-free. And I think that's important. I don't live an extravagant lifestyle, and you'll see when you see my home that I'm not living in some big mansion. But I really believe that I can, tomorrow morning, if I decide I want to do something else, I have the freedom to do that. And I really like that. And I think it's about, what is your quality of life? I still have time for my family. My son and daughter-in-law live next door to us. Is there a better life than that? And my 2 grandpuppies live next door. No grandchildren yet, but we're trying to work on that. I wish the kids would start working on that. But at any rate, that's a whole nother story. So this is that vignette. You'll notice it's not a huge couch. Again, it's on rollers, thanks to Colin. We roll it across the floor I can actually do it myself. It's very, very easy. We have a couple of variations from coffee tables. These coffee tables right here were super inexpensive. I think I paid like $60 a piece for them. They had these little plastic white covers on them. So I went over to the fabric store, to Joann's Fabrics, and I found some really cool faux snake skin that I liked the texture. And so I brought them to the studio. I just kind of said, oh, it looks like it's about that big. And I just cut it myself, and then I stapled it on the back. I mean, it's really silly. This chair right here is one that I bought from Restoration Hardware Store as well. And I loved it because when I first saw this chair, I said, I see babies. Can you not see a naked baby sitting in this chair? I so can. So basically, this is one of my favorite environments to shoot in, is this area right up here. And then over here, this is the last environment, and you've probably, if you've seen my recent work, you can tell I'm a little bit obsessed right now with trees. I can't help it. I saw this in San Francisco. I went to the flower market. And if you go after 10 o'clock in the morning, anybody can go. You don't have to be a florist to go after 10 o'clock. And I found this fabulous resource at the flower mart that had these big trees that had been bleached out. And I literally fell in love with it. I mean, the color tones are just exquisite. And then this is my big score of the century. Again, this came from my favorite store, Restoration Hardware Store. In the store, they wanted like $1,500 for it. Well, I found it at the outlet store because they were closing it out. I got it for $240. And again, I said, I see babies sitting in this. As you can tell, I I'm an extremist. I like black and I like white, and I like things that are much more of a contrast. So I like hard and soft. And so, which is why sometimes I want something hard like this with something soft and fuzzy and fluffy like a baby or something of that nature. So, at any rate, that's the real quick 30-second tour of my studio. One of the other things I want to mention about my studio space is that this studio, or this entire complex, is filled with artists. Filled with artists. There are painters and sculptors and people that work in glass, and it is truly inspiring to me. And I feel that photography is just one more art. And I've discovered, by the way, that hairstylists and makeup artists are in the same boat with us. They're nothing more than artists, just like we are. And in the beginning, when we first moved here, some of the artists were a little bit like, oh, you're just a photographer, you know. They get a little bit like, you know, we're just an idiot with a camera, right? You know, just somebody with a camera. And now I think that, you know, I hope that by our being out here that they've seen that the camera is a tool, like a paintbrush is a tool. And that wonderful tool in the hands of an artist can create a masterpiece. And the same is true with photography, that if it's in the hand of somebody who actually knows what they're doing, then you can do something remarkable. Yes.
Bambi, we have a ton of questions.
Oh, great, good.
About the studio tour. Would now be a good time?
Yeah, this is great.
Okay, fantastic. So a question from Dual2201. What is the minimum size that you would say is a usable studio?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know that there is a minimal size. I know a photographer, Jennifer Rosenbaum. In fact, you guys are going to have the great thrill of hearing her in a couple of weeks at Creative Live. Isn't she? When's she coming to Creative Live?
February 14th through the 16th,
okay,
I believe.
Mark your calendars.
Valentine's Day boudoir.
I'll tell you what, Jennifer gives me chills. She took my class like last summer. She took my boudoir class. And she came in and she's showing me her work. And I remember thinking distinctly in my mind, I'm going, oh my goodness, what in the heck is she doing here? And I'm thinking, okay, let's see, how did she do that shot? You know, she's just amazing. She's just brilliant. Not only is she a talented photographer, but she's a really sharp girl. She's really got it going on. And so I hope that you'll come and join her program. And I think her studio space is like 300 square feet. So it doesn't have to be huge like this is. But what I think is really critical is that if you have a smaller space, don't put tons of furniture in it. If you put too much stuff in it, it makes it look even smaller, and it makes it look cluttered, and it makes people feel claustrophobic. So I would make sure that the tones that you put on the wall, the color tones, they need to be lighter tones, in my opinion, so that it makes it not look so cavernous. Or so dark rather. So I would say there's not necessarily a limit on that. Another thing I would say, in just a moment, you're going to see where my studio first was, my first home. When I started in photography, I worked out of my home. So do we have other questions? And then we'll go on to that.
We have plenty. Let's see. Along with what you were saying, IJ Bowers is wondering, I would love to know the color and paint that you've selected for the walls. I know it's a little detailed, but they need to paint their walls soon, and this would be terrific to know.
Great.
I'd also like to know if you use flat or satin paint.
Fabulous question. Okay, now what I need you to do is I need them to hold on to that question until Sunday, because on Sunday you're going to meet the design team from Le Rev. They're a little design company here in my building, and I literally waltzed into their shop, their design architects, just out of the blue one day because I was visiting my friend Carrie Clayton, who you're going to meet in a few minutes, who's an artist. And I walked into their space, and I was totally at a loss because I know what I like. I know what I like, but I don't know how to make it happen. And so I basically hired them to come in, and I said, help me. You need to give me a blueprint. Not a literal blueprint, but a step-by-step instructions. What do I do? So I was going to paint my studio that weekend. So what do? I brought them in, and because I know everything, right? Before they gave me their paint swatches, I found this nice color of gray. And I thought, well, let's just paint the floor. We're going to do the floor. It's going to be gray anyway, right? So I painted it this beautiful, what I thought, gray. And then the next week, they show me these beautiful paint swatches. And of course, the gray that I picked out for the floor was so incredibly blue. It was awful. I looked at that and went, oh crap, I'm going to have to repaint my floor, which I did. It was an expensive lesson. But the thing I loved about them is they helped me to put a harmonious palette together. And that's one of the things that I want you to be able to understand is the importance of harmony, of color harmony, and of creating an underlying palette so that your studio looks, so that you can create a variety of looks in your environment and you're not locked into something because you're stuck with a certain paint color, which basically is what I had before when my walls were all red in here. Great question.
All right, so a great question for just starting out this workshop is from Cherry. How important do you think it is to have a studio? Would you suggest making it a priority to obtain a studio space for those like me who do not currently have one?
That is a great question, which is a fabulous segue to in the beginning. You guys are in for a very rare treat because you're the first people to ever see where I came from. I'm here to tell you, I didn't start from some fancy environment. I come from a very blue-collar family. I am not wealthy. I never was wealthy. And when my husband and I moved to California in 1981, we literally moved here with $10,000 because we sold our house in Georgia for $42,000 and made 10 grand. Well, within 3 months, we were completely broke. Within 3 months, I had to go get a day job. And so, no, I did not become a photographer. I became an executive secretary. My boss loved me because I'd go get him coffee. I'm very proud to say that I have a 2.0 GPA from Hardaway High School. Just so you know, don't be messing with me because this chick is really smart. You know what? No, I didn't attend college or anything like that, and I'm not minimizing college. I think it would have saved me from a lot of problems. But I'm one of those people that I have a hard time learning from a book. And it's really ironic now because I co-authored 3 books with Skip Cohen on photography. But I will tell you, I'm not. That just was never my thing, learning from a book. If I see it, which is why I love the creativeLIVE experience, I am doing it. I mean, next week I will go out and do it. I'll make it happen, but I can't get it from reading a manual, which is why it took me like 3 hours when I'm reading the Nikon manual, because everything on the Nikon is different. It's opposite. Like the lenses, they go this way to focus. Canon goes that way. All the buttons are on the different side, and everything is completely opposite. So it literally took me 3 hours to figure out how to work the camera. It was really hilarious. So, anyway, to make a long story short, by the time my husband and I bought our first home in California, we couldn't afford to spend a lot of money. And I will tell you, one of the biggest lessons I learned from that experience was the importance of location, location, location. So let me show you, without further ado, my first home in California. I thought it would be really helpful to you all today if we went on a short video tour of where I started from. The first home that I bought in California I purchased it in 1989. Now, coming from a girl from being in Georgia, we paid $32,000 for our house there. Well, when we moved to California, buying a home was very much more expensive. Even in the 80s, it was still over $100,000 to buy a house. And so needless to say, I was still trying to get my photography business up and running. I did work out of my home for quite a few years. And no, I didn't start with some fancy location or anything really crazy like that. I started in very modest surroundings, and these are the surroundings that I had. Now, like many of you, I didn't have a great deal of disposable income, so I couldn't afford to get a big studio environment and hire employees and such. And as you can see, this environment is not exactly, the Ritz-Carlton, could we say. So I had to think of some ways that I could make what I had look appealing. So the first thing I did was I made sure that my clients came to my home after dark. You see, after dark, they couldn't see that my neighbor parked his car in the front yard. No, not in the driveway, but in the front yard. Nor could you see the beautiful oil refinery. We're very, very close to one of the oil refineries here. You couldn't see it during the evening at night. In fact, it just looked like the Emerald City. So it looked beautiful at night and looked very romantic. That was the first step. And so for you all, if you live in an environment or you work out of your home and your environment is not perfect, let's think about some ways that you can make the best of what you have. So I made sure, first of all, that they came after dark. Step 2 was that as soon as they came to my house, it was very well illuminated. I had beautiful little lights up above, above the ground, so that it could light their path very nicely as they came up to my house. As soon as they came to my front door and walked inside, I wanted to make sure that they forgot everything that was outside. So I made sure that the room was absolutely spick and span, very, very clean. I hope that you've enjoyed this short little tour of my first home studio environment, and I hope that it gives you encouragement and that I've been able to give you some simple tips for making some progress in your business. So, as you can see, my first home wasn't in some really fancy location. I would say to you, if you're looking for a new home to buy the smallest home in a nicer environment. than buy the biggest house in an environment that is not quite as nice. But I don't believe that that is the key to your success. I really believe that it's all in how you look at things. So, as I said, if my street wasn't all that great looking, or if I had the oil refinery right down the street, I just made sure that I made that look the best that it possibly could. When they walked in the door, I had a room designated as the room that I was going to show clients their images in that was just for them. That was the one night, because I became a mom when I started in photography. In fact, I was 9 months pregnant my first year in business. I got pregnant in like December, and then I started in photography in like January, and then my son was born in September. So I don't know the math, you'll have to do the math, something like that. But the point is that first year that I was in business, that I was doing photography, I was pregnant. And so I really understand how it feels to be a mom and have to juggle a lot of different things. And I got to tell you, I enjoyed working out of my home. And at the time, it was a great tool for me, because as my son grew up and when he went to school, when he came home from school, guess what? Mom was there. And I don't think you can put a price tag on that. I think it's really important. We have to be balanced. And I know that there's a lot of those moms out there. Clickin' Moms, I think, is one of the folks that's here today as well. And I would say for any of you new photographers, or those of you, and there's a lot of men that are also the stay-at-home moms and that are also trying to be a photographer too, I would say make the best of what you've got. Have one room that is designated for photography. Don't let your children play in that room. Don't have toys in there. Or if you do let them play in there, that's a room that you make sure that is spick and span. Don't put tons of furniture in it. Have a few large portraits in it that will showcase your work beautifully. And then and dress appropriately. This is what I wear if I work with a client, except I'll wear my dress pants. I do not dress casually in my home. I want them to think I'm a business. I want them to recognize that, yes, I work out of my home, but I am a business. And I think that's really critical, and that's absolutely the key to my being successful today. So don't be discouraged, but think about that. When my son was small and I had clients coming in, my husband, that was the one night of the week that he would take our son and they'd go do men things. They'd go to Chuck E. Cheese, they would go, they'd stay upstairs, and my husband would read my son books. Because our son Cameron, of course, the entire universe revolved around him as a child. One child's kind of like having a pet. It really is. It's easy. Lots of people will babysit your child, so it's easy. 2 or more, my hat's off to you women. It's really, really cool. So the moral of the story is I think that's really important. So I hope that helped to answer a couple of that question. Now let me show you where my next studio was, and that was in my home that I currently live in. And as I said, I don't live in an extravagant lifestyle, but I'm debt-free. And I think that is very important, because that means that I save my disposable income now for the things that are important to me. I can afford to decorate my studio. I can afford to buy that camera, things of that nature that I want. And I think that I have a comfortable lifestyle, and I believe that in today's society, that one of the biggest problems that we face is that we put so much pressure on ourselves because we get into serious debt. And I would say to every one of you here, if you have to, borrow lenses.com instead of buying every single thing you have to have. Don't buy into that feeling that you have to buy everything now and get into serious debt, because it steals your joy. It means you have to just have that monkey on your back all the time instead of being able to enjoy your creative process. So take it from Mom. Let me tell you, that is truly one of the most important things. Oh, I got a couple things to show you before I get to that. I forgot about this part. Okay. You want to see where I was in 1987? I want you to get a load. This is one of my first weddings that I shot. Okay, how much did I charge to shoot a wedding? $426. You know what's really scary about that? Is that there are photographers today in 2013 that are charging $426 to photograph a wedding. It's really embarrassing, it's shocking, and boy, let me tell you, this is one thing I hope that all of you, whether you work out of your home or not, we want to become more profitable so that you don't have to do that. I mean, it's just awful. And then, look at it included, 80 to 100 previews. They could choose 24 8x10, so it also included an album, for goodness sake. Okay, so obviously, was I making any money? Probably not. I was paying my client for the privilege of photographing their weddings, right? So take this to the bank. Mother's going to tell you this isn't a good thing to do. Okay, this is kind of the photography that I did circa 1987. Beautiful portraits. Okay, but what you can't see, this is going to make you die laughing. Okay, you ready for this? Try the fact that this was shot outdoors. Oh yes, in 1987, what were we thinking? We would take this painted blue background outside and we would photograph our families and our brides and stuff outside with a blue background. What is wrong with this picture? It just makes me die laughing. So I just had to put this in. So, you know, the thing is that what you do today isn't going to be where you're going to be tomorrow. And you have to be willing to be adaptable. And I think that's what's really important. So learn to be adaptable. Okay, now, this is where my home is now. Hi, welcome to my home. I felt that it was important for photographers that are working out of their home to see where I came from. Because you see, for many years, I also worked out of my home. When my husband and I bought this home in 1994, I selected this home primarily because I loved this room. This is where I wanted to meet clients. It's completely separate from the rest of the house, have 2 French doors that open up, and that way I can keep a very private area for just clients. And for those of you that work out of your house, that's the first thing I think you should do is designate a particular room that is just for clients. No kids' toys, no paraphernalia of family things, but just something that is designated for just your business. So come on in, let me tell you a little bit more about how we did it. This is where I would have sat to interview with clients. The wedding albums and such would be right on the floor next to me. I believe it's important for me to be in charge of what they see. The first question I'm going to ask any bride when I interview with her is, tell me about your wedding gown. And that way I know which album to show her first, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. This wall that you see here, now covered with mirrors, is a wall that I would have had my prints hanging on. You'll notice it's directly opposite the client, and so it's very visible to the client. In addition to that, it's very well illuminated with light. I think that's really important that you and I spend the money to light our prints well. As you can see, this is not a real opulent room, and especially there's not tons of furniture in it. And I think that's important because I don't want to have lots and lots of furnishings. It makes the room too cluttered and makes a small room look even smaller. I hope you've enjoyed this little segment this morning. I hope will help you to appreciate that you don't have to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You don't have to live in some really opulent place to create or have an environment when you're working out of your home as a photographer. The most important thing is that it be clean, that it be inviting, and that it be simple, and that it highlight your photography.